Thank you. It's an honor to be here today. Is this on? Testing, 1, 2, 3. I'm good at projecting, if not. They'll level me up here in a second. But thank you so much. It's an honor to be here today. And it was my pleasure to come down and be at UCR. I just learned today that the mascot, I was trying to think of it last night, what the mascot was for UCR. I did not know what it was, and I realized it's the Highlanders, so that's very cool. Learned that today. I am a product, unfortunately, of the Cal State system, because if I was a little bit smarter, I could have made it into the UC system. However, in my family, we do have a lot of Bruins and Bears, so yes. I'm going to talk to you today about Google's research into what makes highly effective teams. And the nice thing is, it doesn't just apply to people in tech or people that work at Google. It applies to basically all industries. It's very cool. We'll talk about that. I also talked a little bit about my personal journey with teams. And then by the end, we'll have some practical takeaways for you, what you can do with your own teams. And also how you can create a safe culture that will enable you to build the kind of teams that you're going to need as this university continues its explosive growth. Your chancellor, Kim, was telling me about how your rankings have shot up, and then yet you need to hire 756 people or something like that. And I was just like, holy crap, that's a big challenge, right? So you are really going to need to build safe environments to keep that kind of culture that you've got going on right here, to improve it and even make it better. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But if you'll indulge me for 1 minute before I get started, I am going to say my piece. This is one thing I always do if I ever get in front of a crowd, large or small. So daughters are grown, we're out of the house. I do have a black Labrador. Her name is Vita. She's adorable. I hope you think so. I think she is. Now, Matt, why show a picture of your cute black lab? Sure, it gets brownie points and people go, oh, and all of that. But the reason why is because this captures what her personality very, very well. She's very kind-hearted and she's happy. She knows how to live in the moment. If you forget everything I say except for what I'm about to say, I will consider today a success. Every single day when you get up, make sure that you do something that makes you feel like that. Today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Tomorrow is a promise to nobody in this room. All you have is today. Do not miss out. Life is short. Make sure so you do something that fills your soul. The end of your life, what you want is to be fulfilled. You don't want to be successful. I know a lot of people that have chased success and are successful, and they're very unhappy. I don't know any of my friends that are fulfilled that are unhappy. That's what you want to be pursuing. What feeds you? And do that. And I can speak to this from long experience. Some of you may know, I've got stage 4 cancer. I do not have a lot of time left. Getting up sometimes is a big challenge. Making it through the day is pretty brutal sometimes. If I wake up and I'm not in pain, it's a huge victory for me. Just walking down the street. I had to learn how to walk again last year. So I know all the things that I cannot do anymore that makes me feel like that. And I would kill to be able to ride my bike in Italy again. I would kill to be able to climb rocks and mountains like I used to. Or any of the things that I can't do now. But I still get to do things that feed my soul and make me feel like this. Thank you for allowing me to do that today. But make sure that you don't miss out. Today, do something that fills your soul every single day, because life will change in an instant, and then it'll be too late. Okay, preaching part's over.
Thank you. You're awesome.
So I'm going to start out with 3 questions, and I'll get you into a part of my story. I have a very atypical path to Google. I tell my friends that if I can make it to Google, anybody can. My first job out of school is I was a police officer. 2 weeks after my last final, I went to the academy, graduated the academy, and started working as a cop. I had all these idealistic ideas. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to be the good cop in the bad town. I'm going to be, this person, this big change agent, right? I quickly realized that police departments can be a very conservative, male-dominated, machismo culture that is soul-crushing. I found this out very quickly. So I was the first Asian hired at this department. And so everybody knew who I was, right? And they're all watching me. And I felt this tremendous pressure to be good. And what happens is you get assigned to a patrol team. And on that patrol team, you have a few officers and a sergeant, and they go through the thing, and you go out and do your business, do the job. And what I found was that I was very different than the folks at the table. I had different views about minorities, since I am one. I had different views about socioeconomic status and a lot of things. But I found that if I ever voiced those, I would be shunned. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about, you're wrong, right? Just do your thing. So what I found was, in that environment, I just shut down, and I basically had to have 2 mats. There was Officer Matt, put the uniform on, toed the line, did the rules, arrested the bad guys, right? Did the role. And then there was Personal Matt. After I took the uniform off, then I was like me. I know there's a lot of people in this room that have had to do similar things, right? Raise your hand if that's true. If you've ever had to bifurcate yourself, okay, the vast majority of you have. It's exhausting. It is tiring. It is mentally draining. Because you have to constantly change roles. You can't be your whole self. And that is soul-crushing after a while. And if that had continued for more years than it did, it would have gotten the better of me. I would have either become callous and cynical or left under very different circumstances. But what happened, though, is that there was a SWAT team opening. And SWAT stands for Special Weapons and Tactics, and you've probably seen movies about what it is, and it's basically, the best analogy I've ever heard was that when citizens need help, you dial 911. When cops need help, you dial SWAT. Because basically, so if it's like a hostage situation or something crazy, then it's like, oh, we need the SWAT team now, right? Because we're dealing with different weapons, different types of tactics, and that's what we do. So my first SWAT call out was a bank robbery that had gone wrong, and there was hostages in the bank. So we get called out, we put the tactical gear on, and we go there, we throw the SWAT van around, and we have this big, powwow. And the 2 sergeants got together, are drawing up this plan about what we were going to do. And Ron, the one of the lead sergeant, walks over, and he puts the plan on his table, and he says, hey, this is what we came up with. Tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me how this can go wrong. Because you have to execute this plan, not me. And that blew me away, because in all the other things, it's like, I say you do. Top down, that was it. It's a paramilitary organization. You follow orders. Here's a SWAT sergeant who is the leader, who could just tell us what to do. was saying, I'm fallible. I may not have thought of everything. I need you to validate my plan. Different kind of leader. And we all looked at each other and we were like, okay, that looks good. Maybe you want to have some more cover over here. Otherwise, yeah, we're good to go. The culture of the SWAT team was very different than the patrol team. Part of it is because my safety relied on what you did, right? So we like at Google, I manage a team that runs the Play Store. And the Play Store makes a small amount of money a year. A couple billion? In Google revenue, a couple billion is small. It really is. However, when the Play Store goes down, you would think that the sky is falling. People are running around, the Play Store's down, we're losing revenue. Oh my God, I'm just like, okay, no one's going to die. We'll get your apps back up on the Play Store. Just chill. Right? So on the SWAT team, though, I was on the entry team. Jimmy was the one that won at number one. I was the second person, and then there was Steve behind me. So as you can imagine, we're a pretty tight group. Because the plan is, Jimmy's going in, he's going deep left. Gooch, Officer Gooch, because Sakaguchi's way too long, right? Officer Gooch, you're going, Gooch, you're going right. Jimmy's going left, Steve's going straight forward. This is the plan, right? But again, if I don't trust Steve to do what he's supposed to do, or Jimmy doesn't trust me to do what he's supposed to do, you can't execute. You try to do everything by yourself, and that's the quickest way to fail. Right? So what happens is on patrol, you were the whole hand. On SWAT, you were a finger on the hand. And because of that, we were very close. And we had a sergeant that realized that he wasn't perfect, which in some paramilitary organizations is hard to find, right? And because of that, we were able to share and be closer bonding because of the safety issue. But one time we had a particular hairy situation, and I'm not going to tell war stories up here, but it was pretty scary. And we had a barbecue after, and I was at Jimmy's house, and I was like, hey Jimmy, you know what, today, I was pretty scared. That just the plan that we had, it just was not, it was a good plan, but everything went to crap as soon as we started executing, right? Everything was ad hoc, ad lib. Luckily, we all survived, but it could have gone sideways really quickly, and I was not an info grade, I was scared. And Jimmy was like, Gooch, if you're not scared, you're not human. We were all scared. The main thing is that you still went out there, even though you were scared, and you executed. And we're having a barbecue. If you didn't go out there and execute it, we'd be in the hospital right now, or worse. Right? But see, I felt comfortable telling that to Jimmy. I could be vulnerable. I could say, hey, I was scared. And you know what? Jimmy didn't look at me and say, wow, you should be scared. You're a SWAT officer. You should go do anything. It wasn't that at all. It was like, we're all scared. It's okay to be scared. Right? That permission to be your whole self was there on the SWAT team, when the patrol team was not. Of course, how life works is, hey, I found a home. The SWAT team is great. First of all, I'm pretty good at it. I've got great friends and all of that. But what does life do? Throws you the curveball, right? SWAT call, hurt my back, bad. So bad that I could never do full-time police work again. Great. So now what I do? My degree's in criminal justice. I've been a cop for 8 years. Now what do? I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. So I worked a lot of odd jobs, worked retail, and my first temp job was retail during Christmas time at a defunct electronics retailer called The Good Guys. Anyone know The Good Guys? And I was helping a customer, and it was a Christmas rush, and he was like, oh, how's it going? And I was like, well, it's Christmas time, it's a little stressful. And he was like, you don't know what real stress is. And I was like, oh God. The things I wanted to say. But of course I couldn't, right? So I remember helped him finish that transaction, went to the break room and just did the mental scream, right? And by the way, whoever's out there, I made my peace with you. But I'm grateful for that situation only because A, it's a pretty funny story now, but B, is that it cemented for me that I knew was destined for something better than that. So I'm not going to bore you with my whole career path, but I will tell you that whenever there was a choice between the one that I was really unsure about and the safe play, I just took the one that was very sketchy. Hey, it didn't work out. And it didn't always work out, but I always learned something. And along the way, I encountered different teams. Some teams were great. Some teams were terrible. Some teams were so bad that I literally ran out of that culture screaming. I finally made it into tech, very lucky individual, because I met at a party, I met the VP of engineering at Walmart. And I told my story, and he was kind of like, so you kind of like have kind of just made up this whole thing, like you could do pretty much anything. I was like, well, I don't know about anything, but I didn't really land on my feet. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. So about 2 years later, he calls me and says, hey, Matt, it's Mark. I got a job for you. I want you to run the website at Walmart.com. And I was like, okay, Mark, but I've never done that before. And he was like, you'll figure it out, just like you always do. And I was like, okay. So I landed at Walmart.com, and I figured, okay, in a tech world, now they have to figure out this team thing, right? It's got to be way better. You know, the caliber of people, they're all really bright, everything, right? It's like, no. It was a mess. And again, I had to fake it till I make it. I'm still friends with some of the folks now. I'm forever grateful to them because I didn't know anything about computers basically when I got there. I had never even logged on to a Unix system, even though I was hired to run the website. So instead of resenting me though, well, you only got in because you're Mark's friend, they said, okay, Matt, if you're gonna do this, we need to teach you some stuff. And they took their own time to train me how to do their job, which is reversed, right? It should have been the other way around. And I'm still friends with them today. I still go to Giants games with some of them, and they're great. But again, very lucky. So I jumped from different tech companies to different tech companies, and again, every time I kept thinking, well, I kept moving up in caliber as far as like my skills, and so I started becoming manager of people, and then I kept realizing that there has to be a better way for teams. Like some teams were good and some teams were bad, and it was just random. And so I had a chance to hire my own team, build out this whole team by myself, and I figured, okay, this is the secret sauce. I can just hire them. Then I can control for all the variables, and then the team will be great, right? No. There's a famous saying at Google, engineering is easy, people are hard. And it's not true at Google, it's true everywhere. I was telling some people at the reception, almost no problems are technical. Almost no problems are technical, even at Google. They're people problems. And what we found, and what I found over the years, is that there is no way to algorithmically pick a team and make it magically work. It doesn't happen. But there are attributes that do earmark good teams, and that's what we're going to cover next. So we like to think at Google we are a data-driven company. I'll give you a quick anecdote to prove this. At Google, you are never more than 150 feet away from some type of food. They design their buildings this way. We call them micro kitchens. And in the micro kitchen, there is everything from jicama, radishes, all your raw vegetable crudite, hummus, all the healthy stuff. And then there are the other snacks, sugary snacks, there's sodas and teas and coffee, and of course there's the espresso machine. Now, of course, at Google, we have baristas that will make you your coffee, but if you really want to, you can make your own espresso on the $7,000 espresso machine. the trappings of the public company, right? Well, one day we noticed though that M&Ms used to be in a container and in a scoop, and then they had these compostable bamboo cups, right? And so you would just scoop some in and you walk away. Yeah, I got my M&Ms, got my sugar fix, right? Well, it used to be right next to the coffee machine. Then the next week we realized it was down, a ways on the shelf, away from the coffee machine. Then we noticed it was like on the other side of the micro kitchen, like lower level. Then we realized there was no more scoop in cups. It was just those individual packs, those 100 calorie packs that have like 6 M&Ms in them, And we figured, well, maybe they're trying to reduce carbon footprint. That would kind of make sense, right? And so then they moved it all the way over next to the water. We have a water machine. And so we were like, what is going on? That we used to have a free feeding scoop thing next to the coffee machine. Now it's way over here. And so a month later, we get this email from People Analytics. And they said, hey, you probably noticed that we've been moving the M&Ms around. Well, you were part of the study. And in the last quarter, just by moving the M&Ms and by changing the free scoop to the 100 calorie packs, 7 million fewer sugar calories were consumed by Googlers in the last quarter. And again, who's tracking this? People Analytics. The reason why I tell this story, it's a true story, but the reason why I tell it is because if people care that much at Google about M&M consumption, you better believe that they care about people and teams. Julie Rozovsky is the PI. She was the one that did the research, and it was her idea for Project Aristotle. And what she found is that all of our surveys at Google were very individual based. What is your experience with your manager or your leadership or your experience with the food or your experience with X, Y, and Z? But it was never like, how does your team work? How do you feel on your team culture? It didn't measure that. So that's what she sought out to do. This is the question she set out to answer. At Google, what sets our best teams apart from the rest? And this is actually a very interesting question. It's multidimensional, and it's actually, some of these things are hard to define in a research project. Now, I'm not a researcher. I know there's a lot of you that are out there that are. So you can see there's a lot of independent and dependent variables here, right? So the first thing she did was ask multiple levels of folks what they felt effectiveness meant. You got to realize that in an engineering company, effectiveness is sometimes a little nebulous. You can say, hey, you have a great engineering team. So how do you measure that exactly? How do you know you're effective? Is it like lines of code? Is it how many bugs you fixed? Well, no, because you might have wrote a lot of the bugs. That's why you had to fix them, right? And so there's a lot, how do you know? And so she figured, well, I'm going to do this in a different way, and I'm going to ask executives, team leads, and then team members what they feel effectiveness is. Now, I will say that in order to be effective, you have to get some type of results, right? You have to show that you promised feature X by Y date and it happens. You can't keep missing your deadlines and then be effective, so that there is a baseline of quality here. But she wanted to go a little bit further. So the executives, and this should be a surprise to no one, do they get the results, right? When I talk to executives, they're pretty far removed from the line work. So it's pretty much, did you hit your revenue number? Did this happen? Did Y happen? Did we ship this feature? Did this go well? Then she asked team leads, people like me. Now, what we thought effectiveness meant was ownership, vision, and goals. What I tell my bosses is that just tell me the what. Don't tell me how. Right? Give me some ownership and autonomy. I'll figure out how to make it work. And then at the line level, was effectiveness. What it meant to them was the culture. Now, what is team culture? Team culture is simply the set of behaviors that is rewarded and punished on your given team. That's all it is. If you think about team culture that way, you'll realize quickly that there are no neutral transactions. Either your culture will go up because of what just happened, or it'll go down. We had an incident recently where we made a mistake. Yes, Google, we make a lot of mistakes. And we had to send an email to 1.4 billion of our closest friends. This mistake that we made. And we were kind of brainstorming, how should we do this, right? And so someone from the conference table just said, just make sure that the email doesn't sound like the Nigerian sent it. So I waited, and it was like, is someone going to say something about this? And I was like, hey, Steve, I don't think that came out the way you wanted it to come out. I think that what you meant to say, your point's taken, but can you come up with a different phrase next time? Oh, yeah. And I go, because trust me, the Nigerians are sending the email anyway, right? But you need to be aware of that can have a negative context, right? And so what happened there was, again, if I had done nothing, the culture probably would have gone down because I wasn't the only one that noticed. Right? And it's not that I'm some hero, but I just basically said, time out, we gotta hey, we can't have that, right? Another analogy is kind of like, hey, have you ever been in a restaurant where they served the food, it wasn't great, but the maitre d' noticed? Hey, sir, you didn't eat your steak, was there something wrong? It was undercooked or it was cold or whatever. Okay, the maitre d's like, okay, I can't have this. What else can give me free on the house and the steak too? Yeah, they served you bad food, but your perception of that restaurant, what happened? It went up, right? So again, culture is simply those behaviors that are rewarded and punished. And those are things you have a lot of control over. As a collective group, you have almost total control over. So again, I'm not a researcher, so a lot of these numbers don't mean a whole lot to me, but just to prove that it is a real research and peer-reviewed and it was true, I will throw some stat models at you here. 201 interviews, 180 teams, 250 inputs, 3 outputs. 35 stat models run, and I think over 3,000 lines of code, yeah. So those of you that don't know, Julia, undergrad, was Yale. She has an MBA from Harvard, and she taught at Harvard Business School. And I'm not trying to say that Harvard's great. I'm just trying to say that she kind of knows what she's talking about. So, again, her idea was that we could algorithmically figure out what attributes to put on a team to make it all work. Even she was caught up in that fallacy. So here are some attributes they looked at. By the way, we'll be sharing all these slides, so you don't have to take any kind of notes or anything. But here's some of the things. A couple to call out. So co-location was a big thing at Google a couple years ago, actually about 5 years ago now. Where it's like, oh, if you just put the teams that work together in the same like cube area, magic will happen. Like the ideas will flow. or they'll run into each other. Or and the other thing was that we're going to put like couches around so people will find a nice comfy couch to sit down, and then other people will just kind of join in, and they'll have these like little coffee conversations, and then the project will just take off. Okay, who thinks of these things, right? But also they figure, well, you know, if you do everything by consensus, then everyone feels like they have a voice, okay? And that's like, well, that's great in theory, but as you know, if you try to do everything by consensus, what happens to progress? Right? Especially when it gets beyond like 3 people. You ever try to decide 3 people where you're going to dinner? Now, expand that to 25 people. So a lot of these things were like, and seem intuitive now in hindsight, but back then it's like, yeah, no, I can see that. If you're more extroverted, you're going to be, you're going to be willing to share and all of that. But that's also, fallacy. I mean, like, some of the strongest contributors to my meetings are truly introverts. It just means that they're burning energy when they're with people. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that they don't talk. So what happens in places like Google, and I'm sure even at UCR, kind of hire the cream of the crop, right? And what happens is that you end up with all-star teams. The best X, the best Y, the best Z, or you wouldn't be here, right? But when you have an all-star team, and again, forget the sports analogy, I have yet to figure out a better way to put this. If you have an all-star team, the problem is that you don't necessarily build cohesion. What you want to do is not have all-star teams. What you want to do is have championship teams. Okay, this is Southern California, but my wife's a Giants fan, so I do have to say this. So what happened in 2010, 2012, and 2014? I know, the Giants won the World Series. In any of those years, if you listed their staff, all of their players, were they the best team, really statistically? No, not even close, especially the 2010 team. They had no business. I mean, if you looked at their stats, they had no business being on the same field as some of those other teams. They knew how to play together, though. And together, collectively, they beat the pants off everyone else. And 3 out of 5 years, you cannot win World Series by chance. Won't happen. So what you want to do is build teams, again, that are championship teams, and championship teams have certain attributes. So here's what bubbled up to the top. So in order of importance, psychological safety, dependability, structure, personal meaning, and impact. Those are the top 5. So I'll spend a little time on these. Psych safety is the number 1. And psych safety, all it means is that, do I feel like I can share a half-baked idea and it won't get shut down? Do I feel like if I make a mistake, will it be held against me? If both of those answers are no, then you're probably on your way to building a safe team. Can I be my whole self at work? Right? Or do I have to be the officer Matt and personal Matt? And it's not just about being nice. And it doesn't mean you don't hold people to standards. But what it does mean is that it's a safe environment to fully express your ideas without being afraid of repercussions for mistakes or not having the perfectly formed idea. That's what psych safety is about. So dependability. So I alluded to this when we were talking about patrol and SWAT, but if you can't depend on your other teammates, you try to do everything by yourself, we all know that doesn't scale. So you have to be able to depend on your teammates to deliver the quality that UCR expects. right? And then structure. This is a tricky one. So what you need is enough structure. So you want enough structure so people know what they're supposed to be doing, but not so much structure that it stifles innovation. And what we found is that if you have an effective team and you add structure, actually productivity and effectiveness goes down. But if you have an ineffective team and you add structure, their effectiveness goes up. Personal meaning. So this is not if your project is important to UCR or the company, it's important to you personally. So at Google, we have a team called Safe Browsing, and their mission is to keep malware, viruses, and bad actors phishing off the internet. So to a person, it's like a 140-person team, they scored 100 on this. Everyone wakes up in the morning saying, I am going to keep our users safe. That's personally meaningful to them. And it's a very important attribute to effective teams. Also, sometimes, let's say, you're not involved in something that you personally believe in. However, you can get meaning in different ways. I have people on my team that have already told me, it's like, Matt, you know what? I don't love Android. It's cool. People have heard of it. But it's not like, it's like, oh, this is my life's work. But the reason why I get up to work and fire up every day is I love the people that I work with. And it's like, yeah, I can't do anything about Android, but I can do something about that second part. And that person gets a lot of meaning out of that second part. It doesn't have to be the project that you're working on. Finally, impact. So none of us wake up in the morning, or at least I don't think so, and say, today I want to work on something that's unimportant and that doesn't matter. So you need to be able to see the fruits of your labor. So on the Play Store, it's like, hey, revenue's good, or it's up, right? Or on Android, it's like, hey, the blue dot, it's showing up, right? So you got to be able to see somehow, some way to connect what your day-to-day work is with the end goal. Right? King was just telling me, you jumped 80 points in the survey from best colleges, that ranking. I mean, that's insane. Congratulations. That's amazing, right? But somehow you got to make sure that people know about this, right? And then you play a part in it, right? And get that back so you can see the impact of what you're doing every day affects that. Once you have that tie-in, again, it helps the effectiveness of the team. This is our ode to Maslow. So to put this in a different way. And again, all these slides will be available later. So this is what really, if you had to distill it into one sentence, this is what Julia found. How a team works together matters more than who. And that's great, because you can affect the how a lot more than you can the who. It means the power to build that positive culture, to build up these attributes, is in your hands. These are direct quotes from people at Google. So we talked about effectiveness earlier, and the reason why I have this slide. Now I know that universities, there's a fundraising part of it, right? But you don't do classic sales. But this does illustrate a point. What we found was that safe teams, this is in our GBO, our global business organization, we interviewed them and tracked their metrics. And the metric is easy, right? Either you hit your number or you didn't. Pretty simple. And so what we found was that safe teams beat their sales targets by 17%, and unsafe teams missed it by 19%. Now, of course, there is a directionality issue here, right? You're bright, and everyone's like, hey, but Matt, are they safe because they hit their numbers? Or did they hit their numbers because they're safe? Now, we can't prove directionality from research alone, but we have tracked these same teams over 6 quarters, and this holds true. Now I can't prove it, we can't prove it, because we have to take you off a safe team, put you on an unsafe team, and then see how, right? It's not ethical or really practical, right? So you can't prove it. However, this does correlate pretty strongly. Execs found that when the team was dysfunctional, they'd hear about it, and the ones that weren't, they didn't. So they have a 2-to-1 ratio. Safe teams and executive eyes definitely were rated higher by leaders. We're talking about Sundar, who I've never interacted with, right? Doesn't even know I exist. So we're going to spend some time on psych safety only because it's really important. Psychological safety was coined by Amy Edmondson, who teaches at Harvard Business School. She has a new book out called The Fearless Organization. Highly recommend it. She breaks down, she has a really great YouTube, but she breaks down psychological safety into these 3 components. Do I have a voice? Do I trust people? And do I feel included? Any of these sound familiar? I found the second one especially. Why do we do it? Because we've always said it that way. It's like, okay, that means we have to stop. We have to put that up right now. One of my big pet peeves, right? So again, at Google, we like to think, we're enlightened and we have all these, we're advanced and we're, a global company and highly successful and all that. Okay, we have the same problems as every other industry, every other company out there. We are no better than anyone else. So on that second point, it was, I want to say, 4 years ago, and luckily it wasn't me and it wasn't my team, but someone pushed a bad config and brought Google.com down. We're down globally. Funny story is that people at home or at work were calling their internet service provider because they were saying, we can't get to Google, and Google's never down. But we were down. The manager of that team, she's a good friend of mine, she handled this very, very well. And she said, hey, yes, it was my team that brought Google.com down. I know the untold billions that we lost. Here's how we're going to fix it to make sure that no one person can push a global config that can do that again. No one was blamed, there was no repercussions. She wrote out the plan, did the mea culpa, and you know what? It hasn't happened since, it won't ever again. But the way she handled that really said a lot to all the other people on the team, saying, mistakes happen. Humans, when you hit return, sometimes you ran the wrong window, or you ran the wrong command, or you messed up. We're not perfect. But she said it's our fault for allowing a system that could make that possible. So I will remove that. It's not your fault. It's a very, very powerful thing to say to your team. Rather than, you're fired, you brought Google.com down, which would have been a response at some other companies. So again, this is from Amy Edmondson. So again, when you think about your teams, frame them as a series of learning problems. Create a learning environment. Say, we've never been here before, we need everybody's input. That's the only way we're going to solve these difficult problems. So model curiosity and ask more questions. This does two things if you're a leader. One is that you're saying, hey, it's good to ask questions. Second is that the people on your team are going to have to answer those questions. So again, it reinforces that. And finally, admit your infallibility. This is like the SWAT team sergeant saying, I'm not perfect, here's my plan, but hey, what did I miss? Right? So again, work on the how. Work on this culture. Again, culture is those things that define what success is on your team. Those little behaviors that are rewarded or punished. Those are the things you have control over, and that controls the how. Thank you so much for allowing me to share with you today. I got time for a couple, maybe, if there are any. So if you have a question, I have the time for a couple. I want to respect your time too, and then you've got things going on today.
Hello? Y'all hear me?
Hi.
There it is. Thank you so much, first and foremost. Really appreciate everything you said. I'm currently a student, senior year, and I've been able to do some internships, and I've kind of been in environments where it doesn't necessarily feel safe. And as a younger member, trying to kind of contribute to the culture of that group is really difficult. How would you suggest, as a young member of the team, or as an intern, or as someone who's starting new, how do you influence a team to start, transitioning from an unsafe environment to a safe environment where everyone is respected?
Excellent question. So hopefully you have an ally or two. Hopefully it's not you against the world. If there's someone that even has an inkling of what you're talking about, you might want to bring it up at a coffee and say, there's some things that I really like this team, but it would really be better if people could speak their mind just a little bit more. What do you think about that? And just try to explore that. What you want to do is then use your influence on that one person to try to, again, sort of slowly change that culture. You can't just walk in one day and say, we're going to be safe from now on, that's it. But what you can do, though, slowly over time, right, again, those little things, like someone says something in a meeting and you're going to go, I'm not sure that came out the way you said, or maybe can we think of a different way, and just start thinking a little bit and then get some allies that will help you with that. And eventually you can again start spreading that, and then pretty soon people go, actually, it is better when I can speak my mind and not have to censor myself and be more open or not be afraid to make a mistake. But that's what I would do. I would start with incremental, small improvements. Yeah. Good question. Oh, yeah.
instructor at UCR Extension. I had a question. I teach organization behavior dynamics. So since last 6 months I've been teaching this course. So I realized apart from the course content, like teamwork is one, I think, well, I want you to elaborate on connections, building connections with students or, you know, people who do the course and all. Because it's not just doing the course and getting a credit or certificate. I think there's more to it. You know, you dig deep into them and build a connection. So I think building a connection does contribute also to teamwork and psychological safety. If you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, one thing that I do with new team members in a non-threatening way, one thing to do is get the new team member and I get the whole group together and we do this thing called gifts and hooks. And all it is that you share 3 things that you bring to the team, and then 3 things that really keep you engaged. And so you don't have to share some deep, dark secret, right? It's not like me going up there and saying I'm dying. You don't even have an alien manager to have a good team, right? So what you can do is though, but through that sharing, what ends up happening is like, oh, I had no idea Stacy liked to do X or was good at Y. And then again, knowing that a little bit more about the person will then help build that connection. And then the other thing I always try to say to new people is that let's have 3 rules, right? Before you say something, and this is not from me, right? But is it kind? Is it true? And is it necessary? That saved me from many woes. Oh, fails the second test. Oh, fails the first test. Not gonna say it. Because what happens as a leader, you are looked upon and you have to take care of your flock. And as if you're taking care of your flock, you have to be kind. And kind doesn't mean that you're going to be a pushover. Kind doesn't mean you don't hold people to standards. But it means that you're always going to give people the benefit of the doubt. You have no idea what they're going through. And then you're always going to make sure that you're going to speak the truth. And then you're going to make sure that it's necessary to say what you're going to say. And if you build that culture, again, you'll build a connection with trust, and then you'll give people a voice, trust, and they feel included, right? If you do that, the connection will be there, psychological safety will go up. That's the most important attribute. The rest you can always work on incrementally. You can always add more structure, do some other things, but without that base level of safety, you'll have an issue. But that's a very, very good point. Yes, building connection is extremely important.
Hi, my name is Carolina. I have a question. I work with different teams and leaders, and I would like to know which should be the immediate result that I can detect after recommending to the lead, for example, to be more inclusive, to create this psychological safetyness. How can I show or how can I demonstrate that you see if you work with your team in this way, you can see that you are improving your effectiveness?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard depending on who you have to try to influence. Some people are very data-driven, in which case you could say, here's the study, here's the abstract, here's the proof. Other times you can just say, have you ever been on a good team? Have you ever been on a bad team? Well, how do you think our team is? Could it be better, right? And then there's an assessment you can take. It's on reworkwithgoogle.com, and there's a 6-question thing you can just take, and then you'll see where you fall on that voice, trust, and inclusion matrix. And then from there, it's like, people don't really feel like they have a voice, so you can work on that, right? But as far as influencing others, again, this is a people problem. You have to figure out what is going to resonate with them, what's going to make them want to change, right? So that's the way I would think about it first. Instead of just saying, hey, there's this thing, we have to change right now. It's more of like, what is going to be the impetus for them to want to be open to the change? That would be the first step. Yeah, I think we got to call it right now.
So on behalf of
the academic management professionals of LEAD and staff assembly, thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate it. We have some sign-in sheets at the tables outside, so if you would like a copy of the materials presented by Matt, please make sure to sign up. We'll get those out to you. The School of Business, in conjunction with AMP, has also provided refreshments for us, so please enjoy those on your way out. Take another opportunity to say thank you to Matt for joining us. We have a small gift of UCR swag for you to take back with you to Google as a thank you for visiting us with us. We know that everything that you've been talking about, psychological safety and creating effective teams, that will advance us in our mission, in our pursuit of excellence as a staff community and really as a university for the betterment of our students. So we appreciate the investment of your time, your energy, and your resources. So thank you.
Thank you.